somewhat limiting, right? In terms of being so narrowly focused on the population, it was sort of limiting us, right? From having the broadest impact. And so it was about a year and a half ago where we did a tweak, an iteration, a pivot, so to speak, where we said, well, let's be more preventative in nature, right? So not just going for individuals that are that far beyond. How can we both help them, but how can we help people avoid getting to that place in the first place, right? And so taking a more preventative approach and really leaning into the gut health aspects of what it is that we are doing. Not only did that change us from a value proposition, I was like, this is a brand change as well, right? And so that is when we changed to Supergut.
Welcome to this week's episode of Leaders on a Mission, where I am joined by inspiring leaders driven by the impact of creating a healthy and sustainable world. Now, in today's episode, I'm joined by Marc Washington. Marc's an entrepreneur and innovator, currently the CEO of Supergut, which is the #1 clinically validated GLP-1 booster food. And Marc's mission is to harness the power of the gut microbiome to empower everyone to reclaim and sustain control over their bodies. Marc, as I said, I've been aware of you for a while, so it's great to have you on the show. I know you're a very busy man, so thanks for sparing your time and coming on.
Very true. My pleasure. Yeah, it is the life of an entrepreneur. You're always busy, but really, really happy to chat. Thanks for having me, Simon.
It's a pleasure. Then maybe let's take it back a little bit. I mean, you've had a really interesting and varied career, right? I mean, done many different things, different types of roles, different types of companies. I want to take it back a little bit and just understand some of the key influences in your life who makes you who you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's I could talk for a while about that. I mean, so the first thing that comes to mind are my parents, obviously having significant influence on me coming up as a kid. Now I think of my wife as another large influencer, on every aspect of my life. When it comes to career, some of the biggest influences I think of was at one of the first companies where I had management roles called The Wonderful Company, Los Angeles-based healthy food and beverage, about a $5 billion business, and run by a very successful entrepreneur and his wife, Stuart and Linda Resnick. And that's where I really cut my teeth in general management and really got to connect my passion in healthy food and beverage was there, and also got to really touch a little bit across the span of the C-suite during my close to 9-year tenure working at The Wonderful Company. So that was really foundational and fundamental influence on me, sort of professionally and career-wise. Lots of other, folks that I've worked with and for sort of throughout my career, both from a strategy standpoint as well as from an entrepreneurial standpoint, that have sort of picked, pieces of their journeys to incorporate into my journey as well. And then if you're talking about influences, especially connecting with my current venture as an entrepreneur, and what really motivated me and inspired me in many ways to create Supergut, that actually goes back to my sister, Monica. And I've really spoken pretty openly about who she was and just how impactful she was on my life. So if you don't mind, I'll just give you a little bit, of background on her, since she's so inspirational for me. So she was incredibly colorful, had a huge personality, like the life of the party. Her biggest challenge was her health. Like, she struggled with her health throughout her adult life. So she lived with essentially the different forms of metabolic syndrome. So she was, lived with diabetes. She was clinically obese. She had hypertension as well. And this is something that was pretty pervasive in her life. And so she tragically passed away far too young due to complications with her health, actually during a high-risk pregnancy a little later in life. And that was, a few years ago. And it, really, really shook me to my core that this happened in this day and age broadly, but specifically with my sister, with Monica, right? I mean, that this could happen was a huge tragedy that affected me deeply. And it really did light a fire in me. So this space that I was already passionate about, right? Health and wellness, better for you, fitness, food, beverage, et cetera. It took it to another level, taking into account what transpired with Monica and the fact that this shouldn't have happened to her or to anyone else, right? And really helped me connect with my why, right? I mean, just caused me to question, why am I here? What am I doing? And, a deeper purpose. And it actually led me down this path of entrepreneurship. So as opposed to the path that I was on, which, I felt like was doing a lot of good in the world as an executive in the space of food and beverage and health and wellness, like helping people live healthier, right? But also felt like there was more that could be done and more that I could do. And it was really Monica speaking to me that, connected me with my why to go out and create something that could hopefully, potentially have a more significant impact in helping others chart a different path, right? And a path that's in more control of their health. Frankly, the kind of things that I wish Monica had access to when she was here. And that really was my inspiration to go out and start a company, to turn from being the right hand of the entrepreneur to be the entrepreneur, and to start this business from scratch with this bold aspiration and ambition to positively impact things, public health, right, broadly, and directly inspired by my sister Monica. So yeah, if you ask me, like all my different inspirations, there's lots of folks that have inspired me and impacted me throughout over time, but specifically, in particular, related to what we're doing at Supergut, I definitely do speak to Monica as being my biggest inspiration for this.
You know what? It sounds like she's with you every day.
For sure. And it's honestly, Simon, I will say that it was difficult for me to talk about for quite a while, as you can imagine. It has been, in many ways, therapeutic for me to come to grips with the fact that this happened, to be able to speak about it, and also to honor her legacy by helping other people, chart a healthier path. And some have even kind of, hearing my story, have paid homage to her, right? The fact that, her legacy lives on, right? By the fact of what it is that we're doing. And just fundamentally helping people. It absolutely does carry her with me every day.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lovely story about how it lit in your fire and how you have the purpose and what you want to go and create, because you're living life as an executive and you've probably done so much work to get you to a certain level at a firm. And one thing to say, like starting blank sheet of paper, I mean, that's a big change as well, right?
Yes,
I mean, that's not an easy thing to, to go and do. Did you always have the entrepreneurial kind of craving within you?
It's a good question. Like, there's a little bit of the whole nature versus nurture aspect when it comes to it. Because I was, I had charted my path as the right hand to the entrepreneur, right? And I was good at it, right? I mean, even after the wonderful company, my next couple of career stops, I kind of made a name for myself as partnering with a successful entrepreneur to take their vision to the next level. And I was good at it, right? And I enjoyed it. And I didn't know if like the entrepreneur, like the entire picture of that was me. But I will say over time, being in and around these environments, the ish did start to build up, right? I mean, where I was like, I'm good at this path, but at the same time, I think there's some things that I would do differently. There's some things that I feel fortunate from the experiences I can pick up along the way and emulate and see how things are done as a successful entrepreneur. But there were a lot of things I was like, if I had, I like to say, is two hands on the steering wheel, right? Versus being in the passenger seat, different ways that I would go about some things and building a confidence that I could go out and create something. And so I think it was in me, but I think it had to be through my lived experiences that sort of brought it up to the surface to finally scratch that itch and take that truly crazy leap to start a business from scratch, especially at this, slightly older stage, of my life and career relative to many entrepreneurs are sort of, wet behind the ears and kind of just jump into it. I have a little bit more experience than most of your typical entrepreneurs, shall we say.
Well, I think you look at the marketplace right now and you look at what's happened to early stage companies broadly across the food and ag space, and experience counts for a lot out there.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of, you're coming back to some of the fundamentals, right, of business, as well as, just having experience, not just living in the high times where capital is cheap and free flowing, and you haven't experienced a down cycles or, these periods where the fundamentals truly matter, or dealing with really, really hard things, right? And so this has been a period that has not been easy for any of us, myself included. But I will say, having more experience and seeing the highs and the lows and building up a sense of resiliency and that things can get tough, but then how do you fight through things, has really been beneficial. I'd say, especially over this past couple of years where things have been really, really difficult. So yeah.
Tell me a little bit about like when you started the company. It was a few years. There was a rebrand. Tell me a little bit about that journey to get you to this point, and then we'll come on to the company.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually, this is all part of one of the bigger themes, I would say. So our company has gone through a couple of iterations sort of over time. And I would say it's actually one of the big learnings as an entrepreneur is learning how to get comfortable iterating and changing and moving quickly. Things that I would say weren't necessarily come natural to me. That's really, really critical in entrepreneurship in an early stage. And so I think our company trajectory sort of reflects that. So I guess I'll rewind. It was about 5 years ago when first coming up with the concept that is now Supergut. It really was targeted around fundamental functional foods, science-backed, but a way to transform health. And we decided to focus on the gut and the gut microbiome as this pathway, as the research is just absolutely profound. Just all the different ways that your gut, your digestive system impacts your health, not just around digestion, but literally around your metabolism, your metabolic health, and all these conditions that I wanted to do something about, like the way you control your appetite, manage healthier weight, your blood sugar control, even heart health, mental health, like all these things connected to gut health. But, in the market, there really weren't great solutions, at least not on the food side, that really tapped into the depth of the gut microbiome in ways that could transform health. So I was like, this is our pathway, right? This is what we're going to do. And the first phase of it, I really did focus on those who were struggling the most with their health. Frankly, people who were just like Monica, so struggling with things like diabetes and obesity. We had a different brand name as well. Like I literally made it up. We called it Munique, MUNIQ, and it was directly inspired by Monica. It was Monica plus unique with our own little catchy spelling, right? And so it was fantastic, and it was deeply personal to me. And I call it a successful proof of concept because we saw that what we were doing actually worked. Right. I mean, that we could fundamentally impact and improve people's health, including those who were really, really struggling, like needed a transformation, that their pathway, their lifestyle, even the medications that they were on weren't kind of turning the corner. And in many cases, we were that step change that helped them turn the corner. And so that was unbelievable to see. We also saw that we were somewhat limiting, right, in terms of being so narrowly focused on the population, as well as having a brand name that people couldn't pronounce, was sort of limiting us, right, from having the broadest impact. And so it was about 1.5 years ago where we did a tweak, an iteration, a pivot, so to speak, where we said, well, let's be more preventative in nature, right? So not just going, for individuals that are that far beyond. How can we both help them, but how can we help people avoid getting to that place in the first place, right? And so taking a more preventative approach and really leaning into the gut health aspects of what it is that we are doing. And so not only did that change us from a value proposition, I was like, this is a brand change as well, right? And so that is when we changed to Supergut to really own this sort of leadership position as a gut health oriented business and taking a more preventative approach to health across, the many different aspects, how gut health affects total health. I would say that even since then, we've tweaked again, right? I mean, as you learn and iterate kind of what's really going to translate, what's going to help us have success and impact. And it really has been over the past, I'd say 4 or 5 months where we've seen it's not only just about gut health, but it's like back to connecting the dots to something that is absolutely critical for all of our health, but especially relevant for these times, is how gut health and prebiotics specifically, which is what we have in our products, are connected to appetite control and, healthy weight management and literally boosting GLP-1, which is that hormone that helps you manage your appetite that Ozempic and all these other drugs are based on, which we can talk about more. There are natural ways, natural mechanisms. And we knew that we were tapping into this, right, with what we're doing at Supergut. I call it this third, and I believe final phase, where it's now the focus of Supergut is, yes, it's gut healthy superfoods, but it's for effective and natural appetite control and boosting your natural GLP-1 so that you can maintain healthier weight. And so that's sort of, I think, the third iteration of this brand and how it's evolved over time.
Amazing. What is the challenge with that? When you said, like, as an entrepreneur and, the pivot and getting comfortable, and you weren't necessarily that comfortable at first, what's the real challenge with making that kind of leap and that pivot?
Yeah, so I came from a more traditional approach, right, to business and to general management. So I was an MBA. I worked at, one of the top consulting firms in the world, McKinsey and Company. And, you're taught to be very deliberate in your thinking, right? Very strategic and very deliberate, very great problem solving. And there's so many various positive aspects, right? To make big decisions and data informed. And so you minimize the chance of downside and you maximize your expected value of the upside. And so all this critical thinking that goes into it, that is somewhat counter to what is required to be a successful entrepreneur, right? Because as an entrepreneur, it's significantly, yes, you want to be thoughtful, no question, but a significantly higher weight as an entrepreneur is the ability to make decisions fast, right? Which means that you're not going to have perfect data. It's not going to be 100% thought out in order to make that super strategic, move. You're going to have to go, right? And so there's a significantly higher aspect or reliance on gut and instinct and moving. That is learned, right? I mean, that has to be learned through experience because I was taught this pathway over here. But as an entrepreneur, this all of a sudden becomes very, very important element of success. You're not going to have perfect data, and you're certainly not going to have all the time in the world to make this long, informed, strategic decision. And so your ability to take what information you can, take your instincts and make the best judgment decision and to make it quickly, and also to assess and evaluate outcome of that decision is made and to be willing and able to adjust your thinking to make a different decision and move quickly on to the next one. That is like an absolute critical aspect of entrepreneurship that is not taught right in business school. That's not taught in general management, right? Those are the kind of things that get you fired, right? I mean, when you take these risks and when you take these fast decisions, right? And that's how I came up and was educated, and my early career was taught. And so this is a whole different sort of muscle, right? That I've had to build and flex over time, literally over the past 5 years, to be able to iterate and go with the flow and make a decision and move.
Is there a point where you've built it, when you come from that environment and you're then adapting to that entrepreneurship and those decisions? Is it after a certain amount of time, you've done it a number of times and then it's there? Or are you constantly having to challenge yourself with that way of thinking?
I think it's a pretty constant challenge. Here's the interesting thing. So while I was a general manager, I worked with entrepreneurs throughout most of my career. So I saw some of this happening. Now, it was also my job as sort of the president, COO, kind of CFO in these circumstances to also tamper some of that, right? I mean, as my job, right? Because the entrepreneurs had this gene in them to move fast, make decisions, throw stuff at the wall. But I was like, I'm the scale guy, right? So I'm going to come in and help you be strategic and thoughtful about this. And so I was part of the management team to help modulate that entrepreneurial instinct and that gene, right? And so, but I saw it, right? And I saw that was a key part of their success. But then being in the arena, being in the seat as an entrepreneur, I'd say it literally has been a learned experience. And frankly, getting knocked down, right? And seeing that things don't always turn out the way that you anticipated and that you're not going to have the information that you normally would like to have when you're making a decision. It's a trial by fire. And because things don't always go right, that's kind of a lesson that kind of hits you, right? I mean, am I going to continue to hit my head against this wall? Or am I going to, put ego aside, right? Make a different decision than what we made a little bit ago and try something else to try to unlock this potential of what it is that we've had. So honestly, I think it's been a continuous thing, right? In particular, since I've been in the seat as a founder and an entrepreneur, in large part by challenge, right? Almost like a forcing mechanism to try new things and to be open to try new things. That has been educating me. And I frankly still learn this to this day as we evolve, as we are out there. But now it's settled in a bit more. I've kind of gotten a bit more comfortable in the entrepreneurship chair than I was when I first started this 5 years ago.
Great. Thank you. And so tell me a little bit about the products you've got out there in the market at the moment now. So you've really centered in this particular appetite kind of control, the GLP-1 kind of hormone. So what's out there? What do you take for that these days?
Yeah. So at the highest level, the way I describe Supergut is we create gut healthy superfoods for effective and natural appetite control. By boosting GLP-1. The foundation of what we're doing is centered around gut health, right? I mean, it's literally your digestive tract, which is responsible not just for how you process food, but literally in many ways, it's your foundation for health. And I think it's the pathway towards improving broader health and addressing a lot of the chronic challenges that we have. And so we create foods that tap into that science, right? That help improve the health of your gut, but that tie into health in other dimensions of your life, in particular around healthy appetite control. The way we do that is that we create superfoods that include specific types of powerful prebiotics. Right? And so what I typically define it, because people are starting to hear about gut health, and what most people think of is probiotics, right? Which are typically like supplements or pills trying to add more good like bacteria to your gut. That's a probiotic. Now, a prebiotic, on the other hand, think of that as like the food for the good bugs in your gut. Like they need to be nourished in order to actually do their job. And unfortunately, most of us do not get much prebiotics in our diet. They're largely found in like high fiber plant foods, but literally, at least in the US, the stats say about 5% of adults get the minimum amount of high fiber plant foods in their diet. So like none of us. Right? And that's where most prebiotics come from. And so this is what we try to do, is what we went and researched some really powerful types of prebiotics that we should all be getting in our diet that have specific health outcomes. And we create really tasty functional foods around these prebiotics. So we have shakes, we have snack bars, and then we also sell our prebiotic powder that you could just add to any food or beverage that you can mix it into. Very good for digestive health. But in particular, we know based on our research and based on existing research that when you feed these specific types of prebiotics, it helps kind of your body's natural mechanisms to help you get healthier overall. One of those specific mechanisms, we naturally help you produce that hormone in your gut called GLP-1. That's called your hunger resisting insulin response hormone. It helps keep your blood sugar levels kind of in check, and it helps keep your appetite in check as well, right? And so that's actually how gut health is tied to metabolism so significantly. It's large part through this hormone. We actually help you naturally do that, right? And so there's a lot of craze. We knew about GLP-1 like years ago because we had done the research around how this works. Now it's becoming, top of mind topic for consumers, right? When you see and hear about these weight loss drugs that are taking the world by storm, Ozempic and Wegovy and Mounjaro, et cetera, they're based on that hormone called GLP-1. It's in a very concentrated dosage. It's a weekly injection, but it's helping people reduce their appetite and lose a lot of weight. Well, we are a very significant complement, or even a potentially natural alternative to that, by helping through food try to get some of those same benefits, right? And so that's what we do. We create these superfoods that tap into that same gut health science and that naturally boost GLP-1 and help you curb your cravings, maintain a healthier appetite, healthier blood sugar, as well as healthier digestion as well.
And how does it compare to, say, something like some of the pills, like some of the Ozempics?
They're mostly injections, actually. And so that's actually one of the comparisons. What we don't try to do, because we are a food at the end of the day, we're not trying to be or claim to be a drug. We're not here to treat, prevent, or cure a disease. We're here to help people eat natural foods that will help them get healthier, right? So that's the fundamental difference between what we're doing and what they're doing. Now, if you do want to do a little bit of a side-by-side comparison, so they are tapping into some of the same mechanisms that your body's naturally meant to do, like production of this GLP-1, but it's been found to be incredibly effective, especially when they can concentrate it and put it in a shot form, right, in a pharmaceutical, that literally people take these on a weekly basis when you're prescribed these drugs. And it's essentially like bathing your system in this GLP-1 to make you think that you're not hungry. It slows down your process of what's called your digestive process, which makes you feel fuller longer, as well as sends signals to your brain that you're not full. We're doing the same thing, but just not on the same magnitude, right? And also through a natural approach. The drugs are an injection. You take it weekly. We're food that you enjoy. It's yummy. You can have it daily, right? Obviously there are costs associated with the pharmaceuticals as well, especially if you don't have a prescription to one of them that's covered by insurance. It can be over $1,000 a month for those. Ours is like you can have a bar for $3 a day. So it's very different. As in, one of the other unique differences is, with these pharmaceuticals, they do have as all pharmaceuticals do, have side effects, right? I mean, you're disrupting some of your body's natural mechanisms. And in particular, Ozempic and the other GLP-1 drugs, they are disrupting your digestive system. And so that leads to things like nausea and diarrhea, constipation, even vomiting. Those are actually areas that our products help improve. Because, ours is a gut health product, we actually have shown, and we saw in our clinical study, we improve symptoms of, nausea or constipation or diarrhea or what have you. And so that we can actually help counteract some of the negative side effects associated with these drugs. Now, on the other hand, people on these drugs are losing a ton of weight. Right. I mean, it is very, very effective. Like, the world has never seen pharmaceuticals this level of efficacy around weight loss. Right. And so people are consume like 30% less calories and are losing like 15 to 20% of their body weight. You're not going to lose that kind of weight just drinking a shake or having a bar. Right. I mean, this is a natural mechanism. Like call it unnatural, but very, very effective. So you're not going to lose that kind of weight. We do help people, and we saw this in our study, maintain a healthier weight, more of a steady weight management or steady weight loss, as opposed to dropping 15% of your pounds over a short period of time, like with those pharmaceuticals.
Got it. Yeah. So it's more like a maintenance, like very good for maintenance.
Yeah. Very good for maintenance. And it actually can help improve as well, but at a different slope. Right? I mean, so a slow, steady, healthy decline as opposed to like a very, very rapid, decline of weight loss, like, with these pharmaceuticals.
Where do we buy this product? Where do you sell it currently?
Yeah. So
geographically as well, I'm thinking.
So we've been an online business, since inception. And so up until recently, the only place to buy Supergut products was our website, supergut.com. We expanded about 6 months ago to be available on Amazon as well. And so now you can find our products on Amazon. We currently are only sold in the United States. It is very much on the roadmap for international expansion, but as a very small startup team, we have to focus, right? We have a lot of ground to cover here in just, domestically in the US, but, we very much do have international expansion on the horizon over the coming years. I will say one other channel that we have recently broken into, though, is physical retail, which is still where the vast majority of our types of products are sold, right, in a physical grocery store or retailer. We just opened up into retail over the past couple of weeks, actually. So we are sold nationwide in a retailer called Sprouts, which is a natural organic retailer. We are sold now in Erewhon, which is just in Southern California, a very high-end natural organic channel. We're launching this month in Bristol Farms. We're launching next month in GNC, which has a large number of locations, both domestically and internationally, and have a few other retailers sort of in our pipeline, in our horizon. And that's where we will most likely significantly scale this business, is by continuing to expand distribution in physical retail.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I remember when we had the chat a couple of weeks ago, we were talking very much about the intention and one of your drives, to be able to assist, minorities and people that have really kind of, struggle with this, and then the balance of the price and making it affordable for everyone. So tell me a little bit about your thinking ahead towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say at the outset, it's one of my greatest joys as an entrepreneur is being able to chart a company that has that same passion and ethos and vision and values as you do personally, right? And so to bring those like completely in lockstep is one of my greatest joys. And so the way that our company's vision is very much in line with my own personal vision. So we have a very large, broad, bold public health mission at the outset, right? I mean, so my aspiration is to fundamentally impact public health, making it easier for people to be healthier. That could actually help bend the curve on some of these stats that you see right around our overall state of health. And so that's the big overarching public health mission. But within that, I do have specific aspiration for my company to play a positive role in helping close some of the health disparities that you see disproportionately affecting minority communities of color. So when you do look at most of the health stats and the state of health in this country, frankly, or in the world, and you do see it's a declining situation. And I call it an epidemic in many ways. So when you look at the rates of obesity, when you look at diabetes, when you look at heart disease, these are absolutely awful situations, and they're growing in prevalence. And what makes it worse is when you look within communities of color, in particular the Black community, we're disproportionately impacted by every single one of these conditions. Sometimes on the order of magnitude of 2x or 3x the general population. And this has persisted for decades. This has been around for many different reasons. There are many different root causes of that. My aspiration is that we can play our part not only in broader public health improving, but also closing some of the gaps, right? And so that there's not as much of a disparity gap for communities of color who are most significantly impacted by these prevalent chronic health conditions. And so that is, a pervasive part of the thinking in terms of what it is, how I think about it, our aspiration, and how we think about it as a business. And so we're very intentional about making sure that our products are accessible, that they have appeal, and they are intentional in letting everyone know, regardless of your background, that our products are meant for you, right? And so when you go to our website, right, we're very thoughtful about, you'll see the diaspora of individuals that are using our product, right? And so that individuals, particularly from communities of color, can actually see this as something that they can consider that can be for them. So we're very thoughtful about that. Also, a big part of my aspiration around growing the business and growing impact is distribution, right? Having our products as broadly accessible as possible wherever people shop. And then as we grow and scale, kind of continuing to make it, a great value, but also an affordable value as well, right? I mean, something that people can access. I think we do a good job of it already when you look at just how much value you're getting relative to the investment that you would put in to purchase one of our products. But that's something I also want to continue to improve over time, is to make our products as accessible to as many people as possible, to help us with our overarching mission, and then in particular within our mission to impact some of the health disparities for our communities of color.
Great, thank you. And tell me a little bit about from where you are now then, in terms of scaling and growth. Am I right in thinking you did a fundraise? You closed, was it an A round?
Yeah, so I'd say one of the other lessons of entrepreneurship, you're pretty much always in fundraising mode. That's just the reality, especially in the early stage as a venture funded company. And so we've gone through a couple of different rounds. The last formal price round was actually a few years ago. We did a Series A round a couple of years ago. I'd raised a seed round. We've raised an extension round, since then as well. I'd say the next phase for us is, as we continue to scale and deliver some significant milestones, there's a couple of things. One is, it's kind of back to where we mentioned earlier, getting back to some of the fundamentals. So not necessarily following what have become the more typical pathway for venture funded company to just continue to grow, continue to burn tons of cash, and then just continue to raise more and more money. That model is largely broken, right? I mean, and I think is largely a relic of the past. And so one of the big milestones for us is getting back to the fundamentals of a self-sustaining, profitable business, right? That's not how we started, right? And we are very close to there now. We had to make some really difficult changes, right, to the company, to our operating profile, to our costs, and frankly, even to our team, to get on a pathway to be a profitable business. But we are now on that pathway. So that's one of the big milestones in front of us. So we won't have the same need to continue to raise kind of as much venture capital, just to survive, like the path that we've been on and like so many others are in the VC space. That being said, we likely will want to go out and raise additional capital, which would be our Series B round, probably later in this year, but would do it in a different way, right? More as to really lean into the opportunity, to really expand on and really capture and expand distribution in a significant way. More so than just to pay the bills because we're running out of cash, right? As we've done in the past. And a large part, what has caused that shift is obviously the broader market. And, back to the fundamentals is a big part of it, but also kind of specifically where we are. I will say that we've really reached a turning point for us as a business, through a lot of the iteration and testing and kind of getting back to some of the fundamentals. We are very well positioned for these times. And in large part because so much of the consumer conversation is around healthy appetite control. And I do give a lot of credit, so to speak, to the Ozempics and these other GLP-1 weight loss drugs that have become part of the consumer conversation just around ways to lose weight, ways to maintain your appetite. What is this GLP-1 thing, et cetera? We are part of this conversation now, right? Because we have a natural approach to manage cravings, to boost this GLP-1 hormone. And that has really put us in, such a significant position where we are, part of, I'd say, a conversation that's happening, as opposed to trying to create a conversation, which can be very difficult to do, very expensive, especially as an early stage startup. Now, these, in particular, the pharmaceuticals are spending billions of dollars on these drugs and putting them on the map and having people, we just want to be a part of that conversation when people are thinking about and need a natural approach to either complement kind of, the pharmaceuticals, or to, they don't want to use them and just want to stay natural, just want functional food to help them keep and control their appetite. That's where we want Supergut to be, the first brand that comes to mind. And we've been quite successful at that. And it's really driven some real momentum behind us as a business. We're literally up almost 3x since late last year as a business. Still small in the grand scheme of things, but this is sort of getting on the map, getting on the radar of the consumer and sort of media and so forth, just around a relevant brand in this day and age of what I call the Ozempic era, right? But still having some functional food brands to be, leaders in this space. And I think Supergut is pretty well positioned for that. And I think we want to really lean into that, going forward. And so that, I think, will culminate in a Series B round.
Great. Tell me a little bit about the team and the culture of, what's it like to work at Supergut?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I also love. Frankly, as a former executive, it was always one of my greatest passions is building, working with a fantastic team, trying to create a culture that is empowering and collaborative. And it's some of the values and culture that I've tried to imbue in Supergut from the very starting point. It's different than as an executive when you come in, you try to reorient the culture in a certain way, but it's largely in place at that point in time, and you can kind of manage it on the fringes versus creating it from the very outset, which is a big part of my passion for creating this business. And so I've done my best. I think we do a pretty good job of having a culture that truly does reflect that one mission orientation, right? Everybody that comes here is inspired by what it is that we're trying to do, which I think is a fundamental requirement. This isn't just a job, another company. We're not selling widgets, right? We have a big, broad health aspiration, ambition, right? So people that are passionate about that are sort of drawn to work here. But beyond that, kind of the way that we operate and how we collaborate, I think, is a really key aspect of this company. We are a small but mighty team. Like, we are producing a significant amount of products and content, and we're out there pretty broadly. Even with a small team, we're producing quite a lot. And a part of that has been by force, right? I mean, to get to this place of efficiency and productivity has been a big part of getting us on a path to break even. And so our team has gone through some changes, in particular over the past year, to reorient, to restructure the team in a pathway that can get us there, but to do so in an efficient way as possible. It's a little bit of that we'll overcome, right? And this resilience that's sort of built up in this team, weathering the storms of 2023, right? And to make it into this side of it where we've really got wind in our sails, I think we've got a collective resilience around us that absolutely, this is important what we're doing. This needs to be in the world, and we can kind of run through the walls to make that happen. And that's part of the spirit that we have sort of as a small but mighty team at Supergut.
That's a fantastic place to leave it. It really is. Thanks for that. You've given a real strong sense of, of the company. And it's been brilliant to have you on. We love the conversation and look forward to tracking you guys and wishing you loads of success. You really deserve it.
No, really appreciate that, Simon. We have a long ways to go, but very much proud of where we've come, but excited about the future. And hopefully we can be a part of really impacting sort of the overall state of health out there. So thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed the chat.
Me too.